almost there. No way. What is this? You're tuned in to the Eyes Open podcast, where secrets aren't safe and we see it all.
Well, top of the morning to ya. I hope you're all having a very good St. Patty's Day. Well, top of the morning, depending on where you're watching from. I know my Irish accent probably isn't the greatest. Actually, what's funny about that is I can't remember where it was at. Now that I think about it, no, it was in Daytona Beach. When I was in Daytona Beach, they had I think it was during Bike Week too. This was a long time ago. They had for the people that know what I'm talking about, they have down in, or no, it wasn't Daytona. It was in Myrtle Beach. That's it. And Myrtle Beach, they have I'm pretty sure it was Bike Week. It was Bike Week or something. But they had actually like an Irish weekend. And everybody down there was from Ireland. And I remember they were having this after hours party. And they're like, you have to be Irish to get in. Like noticeably Irish. Not like, like the guy said, he's like, everybody in America's Irish. So he would say, he's like, no, you have to be actually Irish to get in. So I was like, well, and I remember I tried doing an Irish accent, and he was like, he's like, you sound like a Mexican trying to do an Irish accent. And we were dying laughing. He says, just don't say much. And then he said, when you go in, he said, say you're from Dublin. And when you say it, say Dublin. And I said, what do you like? Why is that? And then he explained, he's like, Dublin is like your guys' is New York City. He said, everybody thinks everybody's from New York City in America and everybody's a bunch of city slickers. He said, it's like I said, okay, so it's like the city in a sense, the what everybody knows America for, New York City. It's like the New York City of Ireland. He said, yeah, just go and say Dublin. I'm from Dublin. And it was funny because me and my buddy wanted to get into this big after party they were having with a bunch of Irish people. But nonetheless, I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. This is one of those holidays where, I wouldn't say I go along with the way it's become obviously a huge drinking holiday. It's not good for that sense. But there's a lot of good, history behind St. Patrick's Day. There's very good stories behind St. Patrick's Day, but also it's very occultic in a lot of the traditions that people carry on. It just depends on how you look at it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that it's hilarious. They're like, oh, I'm from Ireland. My family's from Ireland. And then you're like, well, where's your family from in Ireland? And they're like, they'll either name some known city, like I said, like Dublin, or they won't know where they're from. And see, where I come from, even being Italian, it's a thing. If you can't name where your family's from and really know where you're from in Italy, where you come from, that's what they've known as, they call it a shake and bake. And I remember I heard that it was funny with my brother's baby mama. She's from Puerto Rico. And my buddy's Puerto Rican, like dead out Puerto Rican mom and dad. But he met up with her and she's like, where are you from? And, your family from in Puerto Rico. And he's like, I don't, know offhand. And she's like, he's a shake and bake. And ever since then, like, that's what's funny. We used to always call it, they call you a shake and bake if you don't really know where you're from. But she spoke broken English and ended up being in the military. I think she still is in the military right now. And obviously, and people forget that too, like with Bad Bunny and all that, they forget, like, they're like, oh, that's not American. We're having the all-American Super Bowl. It's like, Puerto Rico is part of America and soon to be Cuba from what we're seeing. But nonetheless, I want to jump off this St. Patrick's Day special with starting out by sending a big shout out to one of our new sponsors, and I'm very happy to have them on board with us. Prima, okay? Prima, you guys need to look into this company, okay? I love what they put on the side of their boxes too. Join the fight against fake food. Please join the fight against fake food. Now, what this is this one is cookie dough. But it says like nutrient dense, 100% real. Now, I'm the type of person, I'm not big on protein bars. I don't like protein bars. You know, I'll have a protein shake if I when I work out, but I'm not big into protein bars because they got a lot of junk in them. You know what I mean? They're chalky a lot of the time. They taste like garbage. But these are actually, not only are these all real food ingredients, like if you look what's in them, it's like beef tallow. I'll give you guys some of the ingredients on here. See, all non-GMO, okay? See, grass-fed bovine collagen peptides. That's, for the people that work out, know your peptides are very important, especially when it's collagen and stuff like that. There is a lot of great ingredients in this. So if you want a protein bar, if you're into protein bars and you want something that's not garbage, that's actually 100% natural, grass-fed, this is really good stuff. And I actually am going to start, eating these myself, because there's always, between me personally, I get my shakes and I get my BCAA drinks and I do all that during the day. But, I'm down to, I eat one good meal a day. That's just where I'm at. I usually, I usually keep an 18-6 fast going pretty much every day. So this fills in the gaps nicely, stuff like this. And when I seen these, I reached out to them to get into their, to see if, they would like to get in with, being an affiliate with the show. And I'm happy they did, because this is a really great product. It really is. Not chalky, great ingredients, 100% natural. Look into them. Prima. So it's for all my people right here. Check into them. Very good stuff. But I love how they put that on the side too. Join the fight against fake food. Because it's like, most food's not even real anymore. It's all garbage. It's all bullshit. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now, I was wondering, in a sense, I was like, where's really a good spot to start on a St. Patrick's Day special? Because with a lot of the other ones now, we've gotten into how in the Valentine's Day special, where I was talking about how somebody came up with the ideology that most holidays are based off of a sin, okay? Of, Valentine's Day, it's lust, and then, Christmas can be greed, and they went through all of them. But with St. Patrick's Day, there's actually some good folklore behind it, but, a lot of it's kind of dicey based on, a historical background of what can actually be historically proven and what is actual documented fact. So St. Patrick's Day is a little dicey with that, but the big thing about what it is, like with a lot of other holidays we even celebrate, because see, in Ireland with St. Patrick's Day, from the people I do know that actually live in Ireland, it's huge over there. Like, they do like a 3-day extravaganza for St. Patrick's Day, so it's very big over there. Now, I know I'm going to upset a lot of Irish people with what I'm about to say, and I don't care, because it's fact. But get ready for this, okay? Drum roll. St. Patrick was Italian. Sorry to tell you guys, but us Italians get to claim him. St. Patrick was Italian. For the people that don't know, the actual story of St. Patrick's Day is, and this is a big controversy within, history in general, because what people don't want to admit is, a lot of Irish people were slaves. Okay, it wasn't just African American. For the most part, a lot of people in history, especially Italians. I mean, we've been slaves since the Roman Empire. They used to feed Christian Italians to freaking lions and stuff back in the day. So, I mean, it's not just put to one race. Now I'm not going to get in. I don't want to deviate too far from St. Patrick's Day with that to get into the whole slavery thing, because it's only a postscript to the actual story of what I'm going to tell. But St. Patrick, okay, his family is originally, he's from Italy. He was kidnapped into slavery from Italy, and he wound up over time in Ireland. He became a very prominent figure in Ireland. So what had happened was, people know the whole, most of the folklore behind it, that he's known as, they show it, he drew all of the snakes out of Ireland. And people will tell you there's no snakes in Ireland. Well, it's because he drove them out of Ireland. No, there never was any snakes in Ireland like that. What it was it was actually a metaphor for him bringing Christianity into the country, okay, and driving out paganism, driving out the Druids, driving out all this type of evil worship that was going on in the country. So that's why, if you hear, where I come from at least, that's why being an Italian reporting on the Irish, I'm going to have a little bit of a different, I have a little bit of Irish in me. It's on the Native American side. I have a little bit of Irish, but I don't consider myself Irish in a sense, because, it's there, but it's not in a sense. I look at it this way. There was a saying somebody talked about. I look at myself as Italian because I grew up cooking Italian. Okay, I grew up living Italian. I grew up around Italians. I grew up, even like Robert De Niro, for example. Everybody looks at him like he's just some big time Italian guy. He has like 4 different nationalities. Okay, and he claims to be this real Italian type guy, but he's got like 4 different nationalities. He's not 100% Italian. Not like Pacino and people like that. But being an Italian reporting on the Irish, I know there's going to be a lot of Irish out there that are going to have something to say about that, because it's funny. Because there's always been, people will know the history between. But the thing is, from the neighborhoods I grew up in, Irish Italian is a big part of the culture. There's so much Irish Italians that I know. It became a huge thing. It's a very big thing. Most of the cities up north you see, when, there was steel workers building these structures and these skyscrapers and all this stuff, it was Italian Americans, or well, not Italian Americans, Italians and Irish. So Irish Americans and Italian Americans. But there's a lot of stuff, like I said, that they don't talk about St. Patrick's Day, that would really open the eyes to a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of people don't know that. Like I said, they know, oh yeah, St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland, so he's the patron saint of Ireland and St. Patrick's Day, and that's where it all ties back to. But it goes a lot deeper than that, through a lot of the different stuff. Because, people think about, where do leprechauns come from? Okay, where's the whole leprechaun thing come from? And in folklore, leprechauns come from, they were actually known as people who made shoes, because they said leprechauns were always devious, like running around, and they wore out their shoes. So they were known as like shoe cobblers. They were always like making their own shoes and stuff. But that's where the myth came. If you caught a leprechaun, he had to give you his gold. Because in folklore, what it all came out of was, leprechauns were always known as being very mischievous. And the way the Irish look at it is leprechauns aren't overly evil, but they're not good. They're just very known as very mischievous. And you have to realize something. Things don't just come out of nowhere. No, a lot of the times people do create things out of thin air, but when something becomes folklore very deep, there's a reason why they came up with this folklore. And a lot of the times, stuff like leprechauns, small people that roam around, that you have the freaking Keebler elves that make cookies and live in trees. There's stuff that comes from them. Like the wood sprites, it all comes from somewhere. And what that is essentially, it's the tale of small people. And usually you'll notice with these small people, they live in wooded areas, okay? And there's a place that I know of in Ohio. It's called the Fairy Mounds, I believe is what it's called. And they had a big campaign back in the day where they were destroying these fairy mounds. They were just busting them down with bulldozers. And what happened was there was very bad things that were happening to people in the town when they did it, the people that actually went through with the project and was a part of it. And it was actually a very interesting story to see the bad luck. There we go with St. Patrick's Day. I don't believe in luck personally, okay, just to get that out of the way. But they would say there's a lot of bad luck that went out these people's way that screwed with these fairy mounds. But no, that's where essentially leprechauns come from. They come from these little mischievous people that live amongst everybody. Now, they might not have been the older folklore. Leprechauns don't look anything like these, like the movie Leprechaun or whatever. They're not walking around with, a pot of gold on them. But what was interesting is the folklore of even leprechauns. It goes back in literature to even explain that, like, people would think, where do the leprechauns get their gold from? And they got their gold from gold that was buried during wartime. So essentially it was like the spoils of war. Leprechauns and little people would watch these wars happen, and they would take this gold off to the forest or wherever they lived at. But see, in Ireland, what's wild is if you ever go to Ireland or go around the people of Ireland, there's some of them that 100% believe in these little mischievous people that run amok, like in Ireland. So that's essentially where the leprechaun, why it's so prominent in St. Patrick's Day, is because people will swear to you. Even when you go to England, they got the fairies and the wood sprites, but essentially that's what a leprechaun is. It's like it's a fairy, but a mischievous fairy in a sense. They don't want to lump it into the same categories because they act like, fairies in the woods and all that shit's supposed to be like good, but the leprechaun is like the evil, mischievous form of that type of entity. But see, what I found interesting was St. Patrick's Day then digressed down into just a holiday for drinking. Okay, people go out, oh yeah, we're all going to go get wasted on St. Patrick's Day. And maybe that's just the Irish being Irish, okay? Because if you've ever been to an Irish wedding, if you know how the Irish get down, drinking a pint here and there is definitely, Europeans in general view, drinking alcohol differently. And that's what's weird is, see, they say that they say drinking is going down. What was it, the study they posted? They said drinking's going down globally, like, in the billions of dollars worth. Like, the newer age of kids and people are not drinking as much as they used to be. So that's what's wild is it's become like a holiday of drinking. But in Europe, I've noticed drinking is treated way differently. Like, alcoholism is treated in a sense as if somebody even slightly drinks a little too much in America, it's totally chastised. They're exiled out of their circles, and it's treated completely horribly. But see, in Europe, I think they've done a good job of, like, in Italy, all they do is drink wine. They drink wine all the time. In Russia, it's the Russians I know, man. You go have dinner with some Russians, okay? You'll be drunk before you get in to actually eat your dinner. They drink vodka like it's a aperitif and a finisher and a mid-meal, and they drink vodka. That's what they do. Nostrovia. Out to my Russian friends out there. But yeah, it's interesting to me how St. Patrick's Day ended up just conforming into just a big drinking holiday. We all wear green, and that's just what it is. But a lot of it comes out of a lot more folklore and stuff than you'd think. And I think it's kind of weird because in a sense, when you think about it, that alcohol is known as spirits. And then we talk about leprechauns and all this stuff being essentially like spirits of the woods, because like fairies, sprites, it's all in that same type of category of folklore. So it's like spirits have essentially taken over. And I mean, if you've been paying attention, at least in the last, 10 years, you can see that spirits have done, not alcoholic spirits, but spirits in general have taken over not just our country, but the world. And I think that's why me, to be honest with you guys, I thought it was just in America in a sense. I was like, you know what? America's the new Babylon. We're all screwed. There's, it's just America. It's an American problem. But no, when I'm getting fans from Australia and even Ireland and all over hitting me up that's saying, oh, I love the show, and man, you should see how bad it is over here, what we're dealing with. It really opened my eyes that I was like, man, I thought we were screwed, but some of these stories I'm hearing are even more screwed than what a lot of us Americans are going through. So it's very interesting to see the difference in how we live in America versus how people live in another country, and not just how they live, but how they perceive different holidays and whatnot, or different world events based on how we perceive them. Like, for example, I'm giving you the perception of what I've learned about St. Patrick's Day over the years. And then somebody from Ireland or Australia or whatever, from what they've been taught, could be completely different. And that's a really huge thing when you think about it. Perception is very big because, I mean, isn't it about how you perceive something, essentially? Because perception is a very powerful thing when you think about it. Because somebody could perceive something as a threat. Somebody else doesn't perceive it as a threat. What is the person who perceives something as a threat going to do about that, even though it's not? So perception is very, very important. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of great fun I've had with Irish people. I think it's a fun holiday. I just don't drink too much, everybody, and don't drink and drive. Please don't do that. But I mean, it's a fun, enjoyable holiday. I would say more now that I'm not the knockout, drag out drinker that I used to be. I'll tie a good one on once in a while, but I mean, on St. Patrick's Day used to be the day, man. We used to go out and we used to really light the world on fire during St. Patrick's Day. So that's what I'm saying is it's kind of, I want the Irish to, celebrate their heritage. It's great to celebrate your heritage. You guys did a lot to help build America in and of itself. You guys are some of the toughest son of a bees out there, that I know. From working with you to fighting with you to, I'll tell you one thing. That's why I think the Irish and Italian got together through a lot of different endeavors over the centuries, because you guys are, you're tough as nails like Italians are a lot of the time. So a lot of respect to all the Irish people out there. I hope you guys all have a great St. Patrick's Day, but I just want to let you guys know is this, okay? You got to really start to think about these holidays that we celebrate, because I even, I make these specials that I do, like St. Patrick's Day and all this stuff, just simply to talk about the holidays and what's going on, and, maybe inform some people. Maybe some people learned something, maybe they didn't. But I do it because I want people to know that there should be, you should have, not in a bad sense of pride, have pride for your heritage. People don't have that no more. It seems like the only type of pride you can have is black pride, or else you're called a racist. No, have your Italian pride, have your Irish pride, have your Russian pride, whatever it is. Okay. And I think that's what's being taken away from us as human beings in general too, is they're trying to tell you that being, proud of where you come from and your heritage is a bad thing. No, it's not a bad thing. And until you stop worrying about being canceled for all these little small things that people can say about you, that's when it stops. Okay? Because when, for example, it takes two to tango, they always say. Until somebody realizes you're not arguing with them, that's when they walk away and they stop. If you feed into this crap, it's only going to continue the argument. So all I can say is, other than the massive amounts of drinking that happens on St. Patrick's Day, I think it's a great celebration of Irish heritage. Irish people like to drink regardless. I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference. And I wish we could all learn to drink less. It would be a good thing. I think that's what the good Lord would want. But Irish are very good, down to earth. Especially, like I said, not just Irish Americans, because that's a big differentiator too. I know a lot of Irish Americans, but I know a lot of Irish people straight from Ireland. And there's a big difference there is between that too. So whether you go to Boston or you actually go over to the Green Isle, you definitely see a big difference there between people that actually live in Ireland versus those that are, Irish living in places like Boston, for example, or a New England area. But I want to wish you guys all a safe and blessed St. Patrick's Day. Much love from the Eyes Open podcast, and keep your eyes open. I will see you guys tomorrow.